Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning. I don't know what time it is when you're watching this. My name is Jesus, and this is section 2 of the SCA, the Eugene SCA orientation. Um, so today we're going to be talking about the history of cooperatives, as well as our values at the Eugene SCA. All right, so first off, there's this video here. I'm including a link. I think I'll include it in the description, as well as whoever's facilitating this will have the link as well. It'll be in a worksheet, a doc that I share. For the sake of time, I'm going to skip this. And also we have here some history of the cooperatives. Again, I'm going to skip this. Please, at this time, pause the video and maybe take turns reading, or don't. I mean, I'm not there. I can't stop you. All right. So continuing on, let's talk about the 7 cooperative principles a little bit. So the Eugene SCA is based on these cooperative principles that were developed over time as, cooperatives became more of a consolidated idea. So let's see, this first one is open and voluntary membership. That means that we have membership open to everyone and we don't discriminate on any accounts. So, well, I mean, not on any accounts like at all, but any protected classes like that, we don't discriminate in membership. So anyone of any gender, social class, race, ethnicity, religion, political affiliation. So that's in general how co-ops work. They have this idea of membership is open to all, and it's voluntary, meaning that you're not stuck in this co-op for a whole year. If you're a member right now, you can terminate your membership at any time. You can leave whenever you want. And so it's just a matter of paying your fees up to the day that you were here. So that's voluntary. It's an at-will membership. Also, we believe in democratic member control. So this means that every member has a vote, every member participates in decisions that are made at the co-op. We believe as well in member economic participation. So the SCA currently, we function primarily with member support. So all of the fees that you pay every month, those go to our budget, and those in turn come back to you in terms of paying for utilities, paying for the meal plan, providing services that the SCA provides. So the general basic economic model for the SCA is based on member fees. Membership fees are what drive the SCA. All right, and continuing on, autonomy and independence. So the idea that co-ops are independent from the government, are independent from other organizations. We don't depend on outside organizations for funding. We don't get government funding because that would compromise our ability to make decisions that we want to make, to do activities that we want to do. So if the SCA, for example, were to have an organization, an outside philanthropic organization funding us, we might have to, for example, fill whatever criteria they have. So if they ask for a certain gala every month, or we have to host events based on like climate change. Yeah, those things may be good, but if we're not the ones deciding it, that's sort of like, okay, we're compromising our values for finance. Also, education, training, and information. So we value education as well in the SCA. We have, in fact, a part of the budget set apart. I think it's every term for education. So that can be in terms of different workshops. It can be trauma healing workshops. It can be, I think we had another one, cosmic abolition workshops, consent training, Fair Housing Act training, and different things. So it doesn't have to be like, oh, super like official bureaucratic. It can be learning about rocks. It can be education that goes toward learning about different plants and medicinal herbs. It all depends on what members want to learn. And we also value cooperation among cooperatives. So we belong to NASCO, the National Association of Student Co-ops. And so part of that is linking us to a network of other co-ops so that we can have this communication. And if one co-op needs help with something, or they say, hey, how do you do this? We can answer, we do it this way. Or if we need help with something, we say, hey, can another more experienced co-op member from another co-op come and help us workshop this idea of consent or of consensus? For example, we can call upon this network. And we also have a concern for community. So we're not just an internal organization where we're working for our own benefit. We also like to be outward facing and help give back to our community. So engage in things like environmental activism, for example, or the free fridge. The JS hosts a free fridge. Is not ours per se, but we do help with the organization that runs it. So different things like that that help the people that are in our community, not just ourselves. All right, and so how did this SCA start, ours specifically? So there's a lot of good information here if you want to pause again and read through all of this. In the meantime, I'm going to continue. All right, so here's NASCO, a little bit more about NASCO. So I talked about it briefly. Here's more information. Please pause again and take a moment to read this. As an SCA member, the Eugene SCA, you are a member of NASCO as well. So if you're a new member, you paid that, I think it's a $60, $45 one-time fee for your NASCO membership. And then continuing on, the SCA pays for everyone's membership. All right, now let's talk specifically about the culture and values of our SCA, our cooperative, our Eugene Students Cooperative Association. All right, so the first one, of course, cooperation. So that's obvious, but how does that work? How do we cooperate? Well, we practice active listening, for example. There are many ways to do this, and it's a hard skill to learn. Something that people over the course of their whole lives are developing. And then communication as well. So being open about things. If there's a problem, a conflict, speaking it aloud, not letting it fester. That's something we learned recently as well in some of our anti-racism workshops, is that there are going to be problems in our houses. And instead of staying silent and being complicit about it, it's important for us as accomplices, it's important for us as members to bring up these conflicts and say, hey, there's a problem with this. Or it can be even something simple, like someone does some behavior that you don't like, and you can say, hey, when you do this, it bothers me when you touch me on the shoulder like that, or something. So communicating things. And then compassion as well. So inevitably with so many people, there are going to be a lot of issues that come up in different personal aspects of people's lives. People may not want to share them, but it's important to say, hey, can I help you with your chores this week? Because I know you've been looking down or something. Or, hey, I bought you some food because you're going through a rough patch. Just different ways to show that you are paying attention to people and that it's important, they're important to you. And people will do the same to you in a co-op. All right, and then our next value is consensus. So we did mention this in the previous section of this training, of this orientation, in section 1. So we are member run and operated. All decisions are made through consensus, except for like board elections and job elections. So consensus requires unanimity, and every member has a say, and every member can block if they want to. If you want, maybe you can take a moment here and pause and then review. How do you up thumb? How do you side thumb? How do you down thumb? And what do those mean? And then how do you abstain during the vote? And so as a brief review, before calling for consensus, a proposal should be discussed in depth. So let's talk about every aspect of this proposal that should be considered. People who have concerns should bring them up. And then as concerns are brought up, these proposals should be modified. If you want a proposal to pass, you're going to have to take these considerations, these other people's perspectives into consideration. and then modify your proposal so that everyone is happy with it. And so if this is observed, there won't usually be a lot of blocking. People don't normally block. It's only when maybe we rush through a decision, something isn't um, talked completely through. All right, and another value that we have is sustainability. So the ability to continue our co-op and make sure it's not harming the environment, make sure that it's helping prevent waste, helping reduce waste at least, um, using less energy, etc. And so then, I mean, that's the environmental sustainability. I skipped to the second paragraph. And so the first paragraph is talking about just being able to perpetuate itself. So even though the original founders of the SCA are long gone, we still have the Eugene SCA. And why is that? It's because we have some systems in place, or we practice some things. We train people that come in, we orient them through these orientations, for example, to be able to replace anyone. Not to say that someone is replaceable, but to say that everyone can learn to keep this co-op going. And then people can learn as well to go into this co-op and then graduate, I'm doing air quotes, graduate from the co-op and go and create a co-op somewhere else. So it's this idea that there's this transfer of knowledge from one person to another. And it's not necessarily always the people who are there longer that have the knowledge, but this idea that everyone is in community and transfers knowledge, and everyone can learn to sustain a co-op, to create new co-ops. Another value we have is conflict resolution. So again, 15 plus people all under one roof, there's going to be some conflict. It's inevitable. I could lie to you all and say no conflict is going to happen, but that's a lie. There's going to be conflict. It might not always be serious conflict, but there is going to be conflict, and there may be serious conflict as well. So there are different ways to go through conflict resolution. I'm sure Kat has some resources on that and can also do workshops on conflict resolution. I'm sure people already have some experience with conflict resolution. I'll just go over some points that we try to keep in mind at the SCA. So one of them is to understand the other person, or at least try to think about why would someone have a conflict about something. For example, you're talking about favorite types of dogs, and this person says, I hate pit bulls completely, and you're really offended because you have a pit bull. Let's say you have a pit bull right now in the SCA. And so that's really offensive to you. And you say, okay, there's some conflict here. I'm going to try and understand why this person said that. And of course, I'm giving this less serious example, but it can be something else as well. Like, oh, you have a conflict with someone who you believe took something of yours without asking, or broke something of yours, maybe with malicious intent, is what you're imagining happened. And so it's important to take a moment and say, why could this have happened? And also to talk to the person to say, hey, I think you did this. Is this true? What happened? So that's that second point. So it's very important when you have conflict to address it personally, so in person, and to talk about it openly. It's in poor taste to leave a conflict like hanging in the air and just tiptoe around an issue, because then that's when issues start to happen, when people start to assume things. So if you assume, hey, okay, that person broke my phone charger on purpose because they see me on my phone too much, and did you ask them? That's where to start. You should ask them, did you break my phone charger? And if so, why? Was it an accident? What happened? Of course, if you don't feel safe talking to that person alone, or if they don't want to talk to you, that's when we want to help. That's when we have systems in place that we can step in and help. So ask a CAT team member to mediate a conversation. And going to CAT isn't a problem. It's not something where it's like, oh, you're a tattletale, you're trying to cause trouble, you can't handle conflict on your own. We have this system in place for people to use it. So it's just a matter of getting outside help so that this conflict is addressed, so that your needs are met, the other person's needs are met, and then we can work through this conflict and move on and heal. Because if we're going to be living together, we want these conflicts to have a solution. All right, and continuing on, we have creating a safer space, another value we have. So the world is already like really messed up and it can be a really oppressive place for a lot of people. So the SCA, we try and make it a place where people can feel safe to express themselves completely. And, they're away from bigotry and abuse. And so here are some tips on how to keep the SCA safe or how to create a safer space. We're always striving to do this. We're trying to go through anti racism trainings. We're trying to constantly challenge our own internal ideas because this idea of creating a safer space, we're never going to have a perfect space, but we can always keep working at it. So it's this lifelong project. Um, First, always ask for consent. Hey, are you okay being called dude? Is it okay if I give you a hug? How do you feel about handshakes? Is eye contact good? When I joke with you like this, is this a good joke to make? These different types of things, and we'll talk more about consent in a future slide. Um, and then also, avoiding derogatory language because you never know what word is offensive to someone. So I mean, obviously, these go without saying. The N word, the R word, the F word, those, we try and avoid them unless you can reclaim the slur, of course. Um, and if something makes you feel unsafe, this is so in some cases, the onus is on you to make this space safer for yourself. The burden may be on you to say, hey, when you said this, when you did this, it made me feel unsafe. Can you avoid doing that in front of me in the future? So sometimes it is important. You might have to advocate for yourself in this space, especially if no one else has decided to mention it. It may be a problem for other people, but it's difficult to mention sometimes. And if you feel that you can't advocate for yourself at the moment, we have people in the houses that are designated safe people or anyone you trust in the house, you can tell them about that and ask them to help you. In general, people who are house president are usually in charge of dealing with accessibility issues, dealing with some forms of conflict. So you can talk to the house president, you can talk to a CAT member, um, or again, just anyone that you think is your friend in the house, and you can say, hey, can I talk to you about this? Someone said this and it made me feel uncomfortable. How can we, address this? It's always important to communicate these things. We all want to become better people and grow. And of course, speaking up also is when you notice something that maybe doesn't directly affect you, but you know that it's something that's perpetuating a bad behavior. So any abuse, racism, ableism, misogyny, bigotry. So if you notice any of this from a member or a non-member, bring it up, try and call them in privately. You can talk to a CAT member about this. And especially if it is a member who is doing this, it's important to bring it up to the member and if they're not being receptive, bring it up to CAT, bring it up to other people in the house so that we can make sure that this is a safe space for people and that members are not contributing to patterns of abuse and oppression. And, this last one, don't do things to harm others, don't harm people physically, emotionally. It's easier said than done, I guess, the emotional one that we might step on toes without meaning to. Don't steal or break things, and it's all good. If you need to use something, always, just be sure to ask someone beforehand. And most of the time, people are okay with it. All right, and continuing on this idea of safer spaces, let's talk a bit about gender identities and the importance of using correct pronouns. So we're also going to talk just a bit about gender in general. So there's a nice activity. I don't know if you all want to do it now or later. You can pause now. There's a so I shared a Google Doc with facilitators, and it has different words like dude, bro, girl, gal, etc. And then like compliments like oh, handsome, cute, um, sweetie, honey, terms of endearment, etc. And so you can pause now and talk about which terms you're okay with using. Say your pronouns and then say, oh, I'm okay when people want to compliment me. They can say I'm handsome, or they can say I'm cute, or I don't like being called beautiful, but everything else works. Or for terms of endearment, I don't like anyone using terms of endearment with me. Just call me by my name or say my friend or something, but no terms of endearment. Or someone who's like, I like terms of endearment, but just not sweetie for whatever reason, or baby. So we can take a moment to talk about that, get to know all of you. Pause here a moment. And so we have here as well talking about pronouns. So a lot of people talk about them as preferred pronouns, but really they're just correct pronouns because they're the ones that people use. Preferred sort of implies that, they're okay if you don't use that pronoun. But in most cases, it's good to use the pronouns that people say they want used. All cases, I'm pretty sure. And so here are some lesser seen pronouns. Z, Z, A, V, Te, and E. I don't know how to pronounce any of these. Maybe if people have more experience with these, they can help on pronunciation. And so we just have different ways to decline them, I think is the word. Basically the different forms. So yeah, you can take a moment to look at this later. And just be sure to share your pronouns with people if that's something you're interested in. I use they, them pronouns. I use she, her pronouns. I use he, they pronouns, etc. And respect people's pronouns. All right. Now let's talk quickly about microaggressions. So this can be any form of discrimination that's, not really overt. And microaggressions are sometimes seen, there's a metaphor of like, oh, imagine a microaggression as a little pebble. Sure, one of them might not hurt. But let's say you've got this bag. This bag is yourself. And so as you keep putting these pebbles in, that starts to add up and it gets heavier and heavier. And microaggressions do lead to stress, to increased stress in people, increased health problems because of stress. So although a lot of people may say, we're being too sensitive, microaggressions can lead to, a lot of detrimental effects for different people. And it's important to respect people, even if it didn't have a negative effect. Being disrespectful and aggressing people in certain ways it's not cool, and we don't tolerate that in the SCA. So this can be, let's see here, some of these bullet points. This can affect anyone from marginalized group. So for example, someone talking to a person of color saying, oh, your food smells weird, or mimicking an accent, or oh, you're pretty for a Mexican person. Those are all forms of microaggressions, and it's not tolerated in this community. As well as not using someone's correct pronouns or correct name. That's also not tolerated. If you do make a mistake, we're going to mess up sometimes. Just correct yourself, apologize, or just correct yourself. Don't make a big deal out of it, because then you're taking up space and this person has to comfort you because you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I messed up. Oh, I'm so stupid. No. If you said he to someone who uses they, them, just say they and move on. All right, now let's talk a little bit about consent. So it would be good to have a longer workshop on this. I think hopefully we can develop one. Don't quote me. So consent, normally when we talk about consent, it's something that's used in the field of sexual relations, the circumstance of sexual relationships. But consent isn't just limited to that. It's permission for anything. So any non-consensual behavior we don't tolerate. So non-consensual, anything where you're acting in a way that you didn't get consent from someone. The SCA does not tolerate that. So you should always ask for consent before touching somebody, before using something that isn't yours, before doing something that will affect other people. So some examples before touching somebody. If you're sitting next to someone on the couch and you're a cuddler, I'm a cuddler, for example. Be sure to say to that person, hey, is it okay if I lean in, if I put my arm around you? You can explain, you can say, I like to cuddle. And so be sure to ask them in that way, or frame the question in a way that gives them more opportunity to back out. So would this bother you? How do you feel about cuddling, about leaning in, about putting your arm over me, about me putting my arm over you? Framing it in a way that this person doesn't feel coerced into saying yes. And so they can say, oh yeah, I'm okay with that. um, before using something that is not yours. So if you want to use someone's hair clippers, for example, and you say, "Hey, can I use these? They're in the bathroom," and the person says, "Yeah, sure." Um, or if they say, "No, actually, I would prefer you don't," you have to respect that. Um, and then also before doing things that will affect other people. So if you want to play, your saxophone or something really loud, and you're like, okay, quiet hours are coming up, but I know everyone did say that they, have a day off tomorrow. Or if you're going to be watching a movie in the common spaces that, for example, has some triggering content, you may want to send out a message. In fact, you should send out a message or some form of communication and say, hey, I'm planning on watching this movie. It may have some triggering content. um, I could watch it in private, or I was hoping to do it in the common space. How do people feel? And so always giving that space for people to express discomfort. Because if you're creating that space, then that person has the ability to say no, and you're creating a safer space. If you're not leaving some space, then the person has to make space for that. And then that can be tiring for a person, that then the person might not even be able to refuse in some cases, and then they're in an uncomfortable or bad situation for them. And so if you don't get consent, it's okay. It's not like, oh, I'm a bad person for asking. No, it's just important to respect that if the person said, oh, you know what, I don't really like to cuddle, I don't like people putting their arms around me, you respect that and say, okay, I will keep my hands to myself. Um, and it's important that you do not repeatedly insist on this until you like wear them down. That's not asking for consent, that's coercion, and that is not tolerated. Um, and so, as well as someone is under the influence of substances like alcohol, certain drugs, they cannot consent, especially to sexual acts. So, because those substances alter our judgment. And so, it's important that we make sure that we ask for consent and make sure that this person is sober when you're asking for consent, especially these sexual acts. So if it's something like, oh, hey, can I give you a hug? Maybe that's not as bad. I don't want to say for sure, but using good judgment, of course. And so taking advantage of someone when they're inebriated for some consensual act, consensual in quotes, in air quotes, that's also not tolerated. That's rape, and we don't tolerate that. If someone is asleep, they cannot consent either. And we don't tolerate any coercion that happens, any sexual act that happens while someone is asleep. Um, And so I put on, I didn't put this, there's on the right, there's a little infographic from Planned Parenthood. Consent is like fries, freely given. So this means you're not forcing the person to say yes. So you say, hey, can we cuddle? And the person says, yeah, I'd love to. Reversible, meaning the person can change their mind at any time. If you say, hey, can we cuddle? And then 2 weeks later, you're like, it's good practice to always, check for consent on things. Hey, can we cuddle? Like 2 weeks later, and they're like, oh, you know what? I'm feeling uncomfortable. I don't want to. Okay, that's totally fine. Thank you for telling me. And that may not bar you from asking 2 weeks later, and hey, how are you feeling? Do you feel like cuddling? Informed. So this can be in terms of other acts, with respect to things with, I guess, hidden circumstances. So like, hey, can I practice giving a haircut on you or something? And you know, if you say that, you want to say, I've never taken any hair cutting classes in my life, no cosmetology classes. Just so you know, I don't know what I'm doing. Would you like? May I cut your hair? Would you be comfortable with that? And then that person knows, okay, there's a chance that my hair might be ruined for a while. But if they're like, okay, let's do it, then you got consent. They're like, you know what? Take a few classes and then ask me. Then, you don't get consent. Enthusiastic as well. So if you notice someone is sort of like, yeah, like, oh, okay, but it's a bit like, you want to be paying attention to body language, to their own reactions, and make sure to check. If you're like, oh, you said you were okay with cuddling, but you seem kind of like stiff right now, or like you sort of leaned away. Would you like to do this another time, or am I doing something that bothers you? Always being sure to communicate these things. And then specific, asking for consent in a specific act, and that doesn't mean it's going to be okay every single time. So like with the cuddling example, it might be that in 2 weeks they don't want to cuddle. It might be that in 3 weeks they're like, you know what, not today again. It's good to keep asking. Make that a practice. All right, and I think there are some activities on consent, so you can pause here and do an activity with the facilitator. All right, and now let's move to the importance of food safety. So we do have common kitchens in the SCA. So it's important that we are aware of the different types of keeping the kitchens safe for everyone to use. So the Lorax has a meat-free kitchen. I might have to check. I'm not sure if that's the case right now. And there are, going up again, I was skipping some things. Lorax and Janet Smith both provide vegan meals with their meal plan, and the Campbell Club is primarily vegetarian with some vegan and gluten-free options. So the Lorax has a meat-free kitchen. The Janet Smith has gluten-free meals in their meal plan. The kitchen itself is not completely gluten-free. There is a gluten-free section, but in the kitchen, regardless of whether you are cooking gluten-free or not, you are expected to follow gluten safety guidelines. So I think house membership or other people can help go over those. And it's important because a gluten exposure for someone who's allergic can be fatal, or it can really mess them up for a long time. And all Try-House kitchens are available for use with permission. So if you are in the Lorax, for example, and you want to cook some meat and the Lorax is meat-free, you can, talk to someone, your buddy from the Janet Smith or the Campbell Club, or not your buddy, you can message someone randomly and say, hey, I wanted to cook this. Can I cook it in your kitchen? And most of the time people will say yes. With COVID, it's been a bit difficult, but with a mask on and limiting your exposure, I think there are ways to do it. All right, and so more food safety ideas. So always wash your hands and keep washing them. If you touch some raw meat, wash your hands again. If you throw something away and you touch some garbage, wash your hands again. If you stop to pet the dog, wash your hands again. Sanitize surfaces before starting to cook and then after you cook as well. So before cooking, all the countertops, spray them down with vinegar, with bleach, and wipe them as well. Cold foods, keep them below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and keep hot foods above 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Make sure all meats are cooked at least to 145 degrees Fahrenheit before eating them. Meat should be at the bottom of freezers and fridges so that any drip doesn't touch other items and contaminate them with possible bacteria. And you should separate meat and other products when you're chopping them, and don't use the same knives for meat and then another product, because then you can transfer bacteria. So now a little bit of gluten safety. We can talk more about this, especially in the JS specific orientation. Gluten is found in a lot of processed foods, so it's important before you add something to a recipe, if it's in a package, if you're unsure of whether it has gluten or not, look it up or check the ingredients list. Anything that has wheat, barley flours, soy sauce, malt, and a lot of other products will have gluten, and these can be very dangerous for people with gluten allergies. So gluten must never be shared with other non-gluten products. So you don't want to let your bread, your glutinous bread, touch some gluten-free bread, or don't serve your gluten-free meal on glutinous bread, etc. So even one crumb of bread that has gluten in it can cause an allergic reaction in people with gluten allergies. And so, of course, there will be more on this in the house-specific orientations. And if you have any allergies yourself, be sure to tell everyone who is going to be cooking. Say, hey, I can't eat tomato. I'm allergic to it. I'm allergic to tempeh. I'm allergic to eggplant. Or if it's just something you strongly dislike, you can also let people know so that they're aware of that. And if they do prepare something with that, they put it on the side. All right, and thank you so much for your attendance in this presentation. Any questions, you can ask the facilitator. You can email me if I'm still here, or ask any of your housemates. Yeah, thank you so much. Goodbye.